Hi everybody, this is Jason Hein, author of the Varsine Kingdoms series, which is a medieval fantasy series. I've got my companion book, Tales from Varsia, and I would like to read to you a short story out of here. Today I'm going to be reading a short story titled The Gauvin and the Gauvnot. As the moon waned and vanished from the night sky, a cry rose in the marshes. Lights flickered inside the small mushroom houses of the pixie and leprechauns. The leprechaun men and their pixie wives raced to the center of the bog where a giant lily pad floated. There before them stood the young ones who had yet to be placed in an occupation. At the end of each month, all the upcomers of the young ones would hold a talent show to display their skills in the field of their chosen trade. They would be judged, scored, and placed in a job opening suitable to their potential. It was the highlight of a young one's life. With this ceremony, they passed into adulthood and were eligible to work, own their own possessions, seek a life covenant with another, and fully integrate themselves into pixie and leprechaun culture. Most importantly, however, they would receive their marks of heraldry. Each leprechaun would receive the family crest on his shoulder. This tattoo of sorts was not ink, but a sparkling dust that would endow the young man with the most noble traits of his fathers. The pixie would receive a sparkling dust of their own, but since they would marry into another household, their dust was given in the form of a cosmetic glitter. A single color was chosen, based on their respective occupation, though for some, this was not an exciting time by any means. Anyone who failed to score high enough to at least be a menial laborer was swiftly banished from the town, or burghul, as the pixie and leprechaun called their community. Worse than the unskilled, however, were the excessively skilled. The judges had a keen eye, and anyone who seemed that they would be extraordinarily talented in multiple areas was tested thoroughly. If they were found to be multi-skilled, they were sentenced to the worst of all banishments. They were sent to the Gauvin. As it happened, 3 young pixies were chosen that night, chosen as failures. 1 sent to the slave colonies, 1 sent to wander the woods forever, and the 3rd was sent to the dreaded Gauvin. The authorities read the verdict aloud for each pixie. "Shalisa," the announcer started, "you have been sentenced to wander the woods forever. Your lack of skill and obvious shortage of dedication makes you useless to even serve in the slave colonies. Be gone." Shalisha, head hung low, fluttered off towards the towering trees at the edge of the dark forest. Without as much as a single glance back, she disappeared, leaving a glittering trail of yellow sparkle that faded slowly into the thick brush. "Malari," the announcer continued, "you have shown desire to improve, but you lack raw talent. Because of your will, you have been given a second chance to prove yourself in the slave colonies. If you can work your way up to the top, you may yet stand a chance of integration into our burghul. For now, go and prove yourself." Malari bowed her head and thanked the authorities for her second chance. Her green sparkles left a dissipating trail off towards the river where she would meet her escorts. From there, she would be taken to the slave colonies. "Lastly," the announcer said, turning his gaze to the remaining pixie. Her sparkling silver hair was arrayed in a decorative net of braids. Light blue glitter graced her face, a shining gold dress hung to her ankles, and her wings shimmered a vivid blue and purple mix, like oil on the surface of a pond. The announcer cleared his throat. "Risha, you have been charged with exceeding your bounds in skill and fostering multiple abilities. Such crimes against the burghul are only punishable by one sentence. You are to go to the dreaded Gauvin." A hush fell over the crowd, and a few heavy sighs and sad moans could be heard. Whether they were bemoaning the fate of the young pixie, or ashamed that someone from their burghul would seek to be multi-skilled, was uncertain. The announcer continued as the crowd stifled their murmurs. Beware, for the Gauvin lay deep in the dark woods, and is a cruel beast. However, if you seek to avoid him, even greater dangers yet await you, for if not the Gauvin, then the cruel Gauvnot will clasp you in his claws, and your fate will be far worse. Fly swift, fly true, fly to the Gauvin and accept your sentence. Risha's vibrant violet eyes sparkled like the night stars. Even she couldn't say for sure whether it was a tear seeking escape or the glint of adventure shining from her soul that caused her eyes to mist. All her life she had been haunted by the tales of the dreaded Gauvin and the cruel Gauvnot. Haunted and fascinated. A shimmering trail of light, silver and blue, and violet dust dissipated from her wings as she set course up and over the edge of the dark forest. In the distance she could see the glade of retribution. She flew above the trees, keeping a sharp eye out for the Gauvnot, who was sure to be watching every move she made. If she but deviated from the path ever so slightly, the cruel beast would snatch her up. Risha stopped above the glade and looked back. The crowds that had gathered to see off the outcasts were far beyond the tree line now, and nowhere in sight. She calmed her pounding heart and cleared her throat. "Gauvin," she called out, "I have been sent by the authorities of the Berghall. I am a multi-skilled one. What fate awaits me, O dreaded Gauvin?" A low moaning sound echoed from the forest below, almost as if the trees were creaking and swaying in a heavy wind. A formless image leaked into the glade like a thick liquid. Ah, his gravelly voice seemed muffled, as though the creature had a throat full of mucus. "Is that defiance in your voice, young pixie? Why have you not entered the glade?" The creature coughed and spat. "I am Risha," she responded, shoulders back and chin up. "I do not submit my life to torture for my skills. So long as I do not enter the glade, you cannot take me, and as long as I do not deviate from the path to the glade, the Gauvin can never touch me." Eh? The Goblin laughed, coughed, and spat again. "Ha!" The vague and globulous image below cleared his throat. "You think you can fly forever, hmm?" His voice grew deeper and menacing and dark. The toxic substance floated towards Risha like an amoeba. On the winds that carried it, Risha heard jumbled whispering voices. "None can escape. The Gauvin or the Gauvnot. Where will you run? None can escape. What hope have you, child? The Gauvnot smells your blood. None can escape." The last words screamed at her with thunderous clasps and echoing repeats. "Let the Gauvnot come," Risha defied the creature with all the courage she could muster. "I will not surrender my fate to your cruel mercies." The Gauvin slunk back into the shadows further. "Come it has, small one." His voice grew quieter. "Come it has." Risha heard a faint hissing sound behind her, and shivers ran up her spine. She turned slowly, trying to keep her composure as the hair stood up on the back of her neck. There behind her, only inches away, floated a creature so hideous that fear itself would flee at his presence. The odious Gauvnot. Its head was shaped like a mutated sandburr, spikes protruding in all directions from the square, silver-plated skull. Its body was long and slender. It had an arm coming from each shoulder and a third protruding from its chest. Each arm was black as night, long and bony, and had razor-like claws on all 8 fingers that shone in the night like a dim blue light. The creature had no legs. Instead, from the waist down, it had a spiral metal tornado-like tail. It almost seemed like a drill head that twisted and turned, bending back and forth as the cruel beast floated near. Risha curbed her instincts to jump away from the gruesome-looking beast. Wide-eyed, she calmed her rapid breathing and wiped sweat from her palms. "As long as I do not move," she declared, "you can't touch me." She said these words to reassure herself more than to inform the Gauvnot. "I know the rules," the creature hissed, his forked tongue flicking out of his mouth like a snake. "But as the Goblin has spoken," the creature took a deep breath and long pause while giving her a ghastly glare, "you can't fly forever." Risha closed her eyes and sighed heavily, her heart sinking in her chest. The two unusual creatures were quite right. No pixie could fly forever. "You're right," Risha admitted. "I suppose I will just relinquish myself to the Gauvin." She hung her head, a tear slipping from the corner of her eye. "No," the Gauvnot cried. "It's too late for that." It rushed over towards her again, its steel tornado tail spinning quickly to propel it through the air. "The Gauvin has left. You belongs to me." Risha stopped in her tracks and snapped her head towards the creature. With creased brow, she shook her head. "No, I don't want to go with you. I would rather go with the Gauvin." The Gauvnot exhaled a sick, wheezing laugh and retorted, "Too bad." Risha looked back at the open glade that lay below. "I guess, if the Gauvin will not take me, I have no other choice." "Good," the creature laughed. "Come with me." Risha had just turned towards the Gauvnot when a shout rang out from the glade beneath. "Stop!" The objection sounded muffled at first, almost as if it were coming from underwater. Then, as if a speech bubble burst from the depths, broken open and spilled its words for all to hear, the single shout rang through the glade and into the air. "The Gauvnot has no claim on you," the Gauvin protested. "Not unless you have deviated from the path to the glade." "But I haven't," Risha pronounced, as if it were a declaration fit for the day of heraldry, one of the greatest celebrations of the year in the life of a pixie and leprechaun. "Then you can still come with me," the Gauvin told her, its voice wobbling like water in a jar. "Your life will be no flutter past the lilies, but you will be alive." "Don't let him deceive you," the Gauvnot interrupted furiously. "I don't kill my victims, and who is to say your fate with him will be any better?" The creatures glared at one another now. "I can offer you a special place in my treehouse," the Gauvnot continued. "You will have no comforts. Life will be hard, but it will be better than the gooey bog hut this thing will give you." At this, the Gauvin began to bubble and move towards the center of the glade, its deep, gravelly voice taking on a new fierceness. "You tree-dwelling parasite!" The Gauvin paused his insult to cough and spit out a sticky wad of black something. "You can't be trusted. At least I have never eaten any of my victims. The same cannot be said for you." "And you," the Gauvnot sneered, baring its needle-like fangs, "you wouldn't know a good eating if you saw it. At least I have never filled my captives with tar and turned them into detestable creatures such as yourself." The Gauvin bubbled more, a giant belch emanating from between his eyes as a large bubble burst and sent a black vapor into the air that swirled aloft. "Now see here, Suddenly, both Gauvin and Gauvnot fell silent as they realized that the fair pixie maiden was nowhere to be seen. A snarl came from the Gauvin, a hiss and a scream from the Gauvnot, and then the two commenced to blame one another for the loss. Rumors spread through the slave colonies of Risha's escape. No one knows just where they started. One leprechaun says he saw a strange pixie with tricolored sparkle in the middle of the night. Another says he found a note by his bed. A young pixie heard the leaders of the colony discussing it in hushed voices. To this day, no one knows just how Risha escaped. No one knows where she went or where she is now. All they know is that somewhere out there, for those skilled enough to find it, waits a new burg hall for everyone who is banished from their home. Tales have spread abroad that some of the banished pixies and leprechauns have been met by a strange guide who has helped them navigate the dangers of their banishment and find this new burg hall. Tales that no dignified pixie or leprechaun is brave enough to test. One thing is known for certain, however. From that day onward, all those who were banished had a new hope, the hope of the Tricksy Pixie, as they call her back home, the only little folk to ever outwit the Gauvin and the Gauvnot. The end. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Sorry about the low quality on the video. All I've got to record with right now is my phone camera, but hopefully in the future I'll get a better setup. If you enjoyed the content, like and subscribe, maybe comment and check out some other videos. I also have some music on this channel if you're interested. And if you would like to support the channel, you can go to Amazon and search Jason P. Hein, the Varsine Kingdom series. I've got several books available for there, as well as an audiobook and a music CD. I really appreciate the support and appreciate your time here listening to my story, and also we'll try and leave some links to that in the description below, as well as a link to my website where you can read some of my work for free and listen to the music as well for free. So thank you for your time.